Sounds good. I'll let Jen start.
Perfect.
Oh, it looks like Teams isn't doing its oh, there it goes.
Spoke too soon.
There we go. Just delayed. There you go.
All right. Welcome, everyone. So as you know, we're going to be going over get the benefits of using Web SDK for Adobe Analytics without learning technical AEP configurations. So we're just going to have a quick little summation before we kick it off. So here we're your GNOME East user group leaders. So Jeff, if you want to introduce yourself first.
Sure thing. So my name is Jeff Bloomer, and I am the manager of digital analytics for Kroger Personal Finance. If you haven't heard of Kroger, we are one of the largest long day. So we are one of the largest grocery retailers in the United States, and Kroger Personal Finance, we are one of the largest alternative revenue resources for Kroger, and the way that we go to market and the way that we derive value is we partner with third parties. And so Kroger Personal Finance partners, but through third parties, and our products are gift cards, money services, and credit cards, and of course digital. Then those digital products then of course would be like gift card mall and our credit card product through US Bank, and then our money services products. So that is my role through Kroger Personal Finance.
All right, and my name's Jennifer Dungan, or Jen. I am the optimization manager analytics at Torstar, which you may not have heard of, but what you probably have heard of is the Toronto Star, which is our flagship newspaper. So obviously we are a publishing company distributing news mostly through Ontario, but nationally across Canada. And I do everything analytics, from writing the requirements to working with the implementation to pulling reports and teaching people in our organization how to pull data. So I do that for our websites, our mobile apps, AMP, pretty much everything, you name it. And that's kind of me in a nutshell. Andy?
Thanks, Jen. So I'm Andy Lunsford, and I'm Associate Director of Data Instrumentation at Razorfish. I've worked in all kinds of fun industries, such as legal, banking, and grocery. I like to describe my role as being kind of the person who gets the data collected to allow the analysts to make the insights they need. So I've worked with all kinds of systems of data collection, from ACDL, data layer, digital data, AEP, which is a great precursor to this discussion. All the different ways you can collect data, and I like to find new ways to optimize and streamline data collection so that our clients can continue to utilize their data to the best ability. And with that, I think we can jump right into the next slide.
Okay. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Basically, since you're already here, you're probably already aware of GNOME East, but if you just got this through a push that Chase has, helped to send out, or through LinkedIn, you are absolutely welcome to join the user group session. In that, you will be notified of any upcoming events that we're holding, or even go and join up for other chapters within the user groups. Everyone's got fantastic content, and it's a great place to learn stuff. And as always, this session is being recorded. You can find the recordings at the YouTube channel, which you can see here. I'll just leave this up for a few more seconds just to let people get a chance for the links, but they will be posted in the chat. We'll follow that up as soon as I pass this off to our guests, as well as in a follow-up email following this session. All right, so hopefully everyone's had a chance to see these. And so with that, today's event is, we have two special guests with us. We have Stu Schilling and Haley Meekins from Search Discovery, who are come from the team that actually developed the extension that you're about to see. So Feel free to post questions into the chat. We'll be watching them to come through, and we'll do a Q&A session at the end, so as to not break the cycle of Stu's presentation. But these are the people to ask. So any questions, keep them coming. And with that, I'm going to pass this off to Stu.
Fantastic. I'm going to start the share here. Let me know when you're able to see. Should be up.
We are seeing it.
All right.
With that, I'm going to turn my camera off and mute myself.
So thanks for having me. Thanks for having us. We're going to be talking about a new extension for Adobe Launch called AA via AEP Web SDK. We think that's a mouthful, and so a lot of times I'm going to say AVA, which is sort of AVA. We'll be walking through a little bit of like the why for this extension and the what for this extension, and doing a bit of a demo so you can see it in action and see exactly what it does and how it might work for you. And I guess I have to get my focus onto my screen. There we go. So what is it? So this is an improved solution for Adobe Analytics data collection using the AEP Web SDK. And jumping in here, why would you even want to use the AEP Web SDK? If you went to Adobe Summit, you probably saw a lot of content about this. And I just want to recap this so that you have an idea of why you might want to think about going from traditional Adobe Analytics data collection using app measurement, using visitor.js, using potentially DIL code for Audience Manager, using ATJS for Target. So using the new solution, AEP Web SDK or Alloy.js, it's a lot lighter. So it can be up to 150K lighter on your library size. It's a lot faster. So it's one purpose-built library that's doing all the communication for all of those products, for Adobe Analytics, for Visitor ID service, for Target, and for Audience Manager. So all that stuff is incorporated and streamlined into one library, not a bunch of integrations from a bunch of different vendors. We have the opportunity to have more durable visitor identification. So there's an option that where you can use your own durable visitor identifier from your own application or web server. And because what makes it durable is it's coming from your own domain on your own IP range, so an A record, and it's not going to have that 7-day expiration that's becoming so common with a lot of the security and privacy crackdowns that are happening. So built-in privacy controls, another one that makes this really great. So you have the ability to say, I don't want to send anything to the Adobe Edge until I have a consent from a user, until a user tells me it's okay to do it. You can also choose, I don't want to buffer things up, I want to queue them up. And then when a user gives consent, if a user gives consent, then I want to send that data. Or you can have the opt-out model where you go ahead and send things until a user tells you not to. I mentioned this at the start, so basically unified. So one library versus 4 libraries, which is lighter and faster. And the last reason why you might want to use AEP Web SDK is to enable some of the new functionality that's available on the Adobe platform, something like server-side forwarding or real-time CDP or personalization. So with that out of the way, the goal of this extension is to enable you, people who are familiar doing Adobe Analytics implementations and familiar with, let's say, this extension, the Adobe Analytics extension, to quickly get up to speed and to quickly migrate right over to this new environment. And so if you know this extension, Adobe Analytics, then you're gonna know this extension, AVA or AA via AEP Web SDK. So here's a little bit about where you might be today and where you might be going as far as the sort of manifest of extensions that you have on your site. So everybody's got the core extension. If you're using Adobe Launch, you've got the core extension. You may probably do have Experience Cloud ID Service. So that's the visitor.js library. And you most likely have Adobe Analytics. You may also have Target. You may also have some Audience Manager stuff. And you may also have our product string builder or another product string builder, something that helps you create Adobe Analytics product strings without having to write a bunch of code. So coming from here, from this current situation to the new situation, we're replacing Adobe Analytics from the transport side of things. We're replacing Experience Cloud ID Service from the functionality side of things, as well as Target from the functionality side of things. All that's being replaced by the AEP Web SDK. So I say AEP Web SDK because that's what it used to be called. I like to say that more than saying Adobe Experience Platform Web SDK. So I'm going to keep saying that. I guess you'll have to sue me or something. Here is this new extension, and this is taking care of the UI functionality of the Adobe Analytics extension and the UI functionality of the product string builder. So that is all coming into this new extension. So what does this extension provide? So let's talk about the extension actions that it provides. So just as the Adobe Analytics extension provided a set variables action, I have to keep myself from clicking on this presentation because it will go forward. The set variables action is provided in this extension. And we purposefully made it look as similar as the set variables action in the existing Adobe Analytics extension. So you're going to be able to set evars and props and events and hierarchies. You're going to be able to set list vars, which I think was something that was lacking from the AA or Adobe Analytics extension, as well as the currency code. And we're supporting custom code just as it is supported in the existing Adobe Analytics set variables. So it receives the triggering event that you can interrogate, and it receives a thing called an S object. So it's an object by the name of S, and you can actually take your existing custom code and just plop it into this new extension, and it's going to work the way that you're expecting it to work. So setting, s.evar3 or s.prop4 or s.products if you wanted to. Send beacon. So here's the action that actually sends a beacon, and you get to select. Do I want it to be a page view beacon, so s.t, or do I want it to be a custom link, exit link, or download link, s.tl? The clear variables action is provided, and no configuration, just as there's no configuration today. So you just put that action in your action sequence, either before you do your work or after you do your work, to kind of tidy things up. And we also have a set product string action, and this is designed to look exactly like the set product string or AA product string builder extension. So it allows you to set the category, the product, the quantity, and cost. If you want to set those parameters, allows you to set product string merchandising evars, as well as product string custom events. So beyond extension actions, we have the extension configuration. And just as we have in the Adobe Analytics extension, we have global settings. So global settings is a place with a user interface to set props, evars, events, hierarchies, all those things. It looks, the UI is going to look a lot like set variables. And you just, use it that way. So you say which variable you want to set, and then give it a static value or a data element, and you're off to the races. The way that this works is that these settings are applied on every beacon that's sent. So it's part of that processing where you're going to do, send a page view. We're going to apply all of these global variables onto that page view just prior to doing the do plugins. So do plugins. This is another thing that we wanted to provide in this extension to give you a easy migration path. So if you are using do plugins on your current implementation, a lot of people have it from way back when, even before they were on launch, you can use that same do plugins code within this environment. And so you're receiving the S object, and you basically expect this to run when the extension initializes. So that's when you would say use plugins or set up your do plugins function, or initialize the plugins that you're going to use. And then this is scoped into the S object that we use throughout the lifecycle. So let's say that you declare a plugin on the S object. You can use that elsewhere, anywhere that you have access to the S object. So you could declare a plugin here, but then use it on the custom code of a rule. So in the action of a set variables rule. And that's about it. It's kind of short and sweet as far as what the thing does. So let's take a look at how this thing works in real life. And to do that, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. So prior to this, we have a website that I use for testing. This website is loading a launch property called 7pigs AEP demo. It has a data layer, and this data layer is an event-driven data layer. And when we load a product page, which is where we're going to be doing our testing, we have an event called page load started. We have an event called product viewed, an event called user detected, and an event called page load completed. And each of these events provide some information. So the product viewed provides information about the product being viewed. The page load started provides some information about the page being viewed, and so on and so forth. If we look at the computed state of this array, so like putting it all together, we have page information, we have a product array, we have user information, and user login status is one that we're going to actually use. So let's go ahead and load this page. I just want to kind of show you that nothing is going to the edge. So this is sort of nothing up my sleeves. So if I reload this and we go to the experience platform debugger, we're going to see that there's some client stuff happening. So data layer manager, we're using that. We've got some rules that are firing, but these rules aren't really doing anything. And we certainly are getting nothing sent up to the edge. So no data is being sent away from this website at this point. And I don't know why I didn't get pictures, but there we go. You can see in the console that, yeah, so we got some rules firing, but that's about it. So here's the setup. We have this SDR, and we want to implement this SDR using these new methods. And we've got a few things. So we've got one section, which is things we want to do on every beacon. On every page, we're going to send a page view beacon. And on product pages, we're going to set up a product string and send the prod view event. And then when a product is added to a cart, we're going to set the SCAD event, and we're going to set a product string, and then we're going to send a custom link beacon. So not a page view beacon, but this is going to be a custom link beacon that we're going to send. And we're just going to walk through here and see what it takes to actually do this. So here's my launch property, and here's the extensions that I have. I have the AEP Web SDK, got the core extension, I've got Data Layer Manager, and I've got the AVA or AE via AEP Web SDK extension. And the first clue here, as far as how we're going to do this, is on every beacon. So on every beacon, this is going to be a global configuration that we want to set up. And the global configuration is here under the configure button of this extension. And just like I said, it's going to look pretty familiar to you. So we had said that we wanted to set evar5 to the value of a data element, which was location path name. Now, these data elements are already created, and that's probably the situation that you will be in because you have an implementation where you've already set up all your data elements. So you know how to get your data. And the task that we're looking at here is, how do I send this data? How do I get this thing sent over XDM to the edge? So we had said that we wanted prop6 to be this user.login status. And we wanted to set up some of our standard things. So we want to set page name, we want to set server, and we want to set channel. And our variables or data elements for that, page.page name, sort of no surprise there. Server, we're just going to use location.hostname. And channel or site section, we'll use page.page category. So pretty straightforward. Those are just those variable mappings. And once again, these are going to be set on every beacon that we send off to the edge. And we also had a need to do some plugin stuff. So we wanted to set evar8 to get time parting, and we wanted to set evar9 and prop9 to the get visit num plugin value. And to do that, we go here and we say configure using custom code, and we open this editor. And I'm not going to type all this stuff, but I'll do a little run through and we'll show you what we're actually doing. So here we have the S object being passed in. We're going to say s.usePlugins is true, meaning, hey, if you see a do plugins function, then run that thing before you send a beacon. S.doPlugins is this function, which we're declaring here in line, and within it, we're saying s.evar8 is the value of s.getTimeParting for my time zone. And s.prop9 and s.evar9, we're going to get the value from the function getVisitNum. Here are those plugin declarations. I did it two ways here just to show that you can. So here I'm declaring getTimeParting on the S object. Maybe we want to use that elsewhere. And here getVisitNum is going to be scoped just to this container. And so you can't reference it on the S object. But this seems to be the way that sort of the future of plugins. You can also use the ACS common plugins extension if you want to go that route. So I'm going to save that to the library. And in order to see any of that take place, we need to send a beacon. And so back to our SDR on every page, look for this page load completed event, and we're going to send a beacon. So I already have that event wired up in a rule, page load completed, and we're just looking for that event to be pushed to the data layer. And the actions, so here, just like you would do in Adobe Analytics, we're going to say send beacon. And we say we want it to be in s.tl. So under the covers, there's a lot going on to make this, to translate these things that you're used to into things that you're maybe not so used to, setting the right values in XDM. But like I said, if you know the Adobe Analytics extension, you should be able to use this one right out of the gate. So there we are, setting the beacon, clearing variables. This is just my best practice. I like to make sure that everything is cleaned up after I send data. And I'm going to do save to library and build. And we're going to wait for this thing to build. And when it completes, we'll come over to the website and see what it looks like. So once again, here's my edge log, nothing going to the edge. What happens if we reload this page? So some stuff happened, and indeed, yeah, some stuff went to the edge. So let's take a look. Here is my page load completed rule, and we can see that this extension is applying global settings. And as we said, page name is getting a value, channel is getting a value, server is getting a value, and evar5 we set up to be the path name, and prop6 was the user login status. Here we are configuring the page beacon, and what we're seeing here, and we'll see this anytime that we're either preparing or sending a beacon, that this is sort of the final state of it. And we'll see what's different here is that, hey, evar8 is set, and this is our get time parting value. evar9 is set, so that's the plugin from our get visit num. prop9 is set, so that's the value from our get visit num on prop9. And if we follow through in the logging here, AEP Web SDK, page load completed, sending page beacon via AEP Web SDK. And this alloy, so this is the debugging that you would see if you're using AEP Web SDK. We can see this. So this is kind of like the handoff. And here's the XDM that was put together for all of those props and evars and events and whatnot. So instead of you having to build this object up yourself, this extension did it for you in a way that you're used to doing it. If you don't have this extension, you would have to go out and figure out the mappings for each thing that you want to set. And so you might say, all right, I need to do a add to cart, so cart additions metric, and that is under commerce.productlistads dot actually value. So you would have to set that to 1 instead of setting SC add in your event list. And if you wanted to set an evar, then you have to come in here and figure out where evars are. I'm blanking, but let's say prop instead. You have to set props under underscore experience.analytics at custom dimensions dot, I'm not even there, dot props dot prop 1 through prop 75. So hopefully this extension will help you and take away a lot of the mental load of having to do all these translations. I don't think you're necessarily better for doing it. I think that eventually, you're going to get used to seeing what's coming over to the edge, and you're going to get used to seeing, all right, yeah, okay, this is where these things live. But I don't know that you really need to take on the work of mapping each and every one of these things yourself. Here's where it gets exciting. So because this extension mapped to all of the right places within the XDM JSON that was sent to the edge, we have this automatic mapping that takes place. So this is what Adobe does with all of the information that's being sent when you're sending data through a data stream to Adobe Analytics. It's going to try to map these things. And here, so here is mapped query params. Here's our report suite ID, so RSID. And then these are the values that are getting sent in. And so we can see prop 6, prop 9, channel, JS text stuff. Here's my URL, and here's my page name, GN, my visitor ID, MID, refer, server, v5, so EVAR5, EVAR8, and EVAR9. So all that data that we set the way we're used to setting it made it through. And here's our page views value. So this is what's telling us that this is a page beacon. So let's move over to the next bit. Here we're going to see how to build a product string. And so here we are on this product page. And if we look at this data layer, we'll see that we have a product array under the key product, and we have a price and product info node within it. And these are, arbitrary, but this is what we're dealing with here. So product info.brand is out of stock, name and product ID, and price, selling price. So when a product is viewed, so the event for that is product viewed. And we have a rule that's triggered by that event. And so we're going to go into actions. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, I want to set variables. So once again, the only variable that I care to set here, there might be others in your case, but I'm just setting the prod view event. So I'm just going to say keep changes. And here we're going to set up a product string. So using this new extension, set product string. This is a little more complicated, but once you get the hang of it, it really makes sense. So the first thing is, where's my data layer? So where's the object that contains my data? And I've got a data element that basically provides that app event data.computed state. So it's going to return this. Where is my product collection within that data? So it exists on a key named product. I'm going to set my product category just to the static value product. And depending on how you do it, you could you could have this variable, but I use product strings for a lot of different things. And so I like to set category to product, so I know that this is sort of a real product. So product info.product ID. This is where we're going to get our product ID from, and we're going to say as collection item path. So we're going to basically pull it out of this. Here are my custom events, and so we said we wanted to set 2 different custom events. One was event 11, the other was event 12, and pretty simple here. The path to the event. So within that product array, the path to this one was product info dot is out of stock. And so this is providing a Boolean value. So it's going to provide a true or a false, and we can kind of see that over here, is out of stock, false. And we want to convert that to a 1 or a 0, and based on true or false. And then we also wanted to capture the price at the time of the product view. This is a little bit contrived. I don't know that I would actually do this. But it will show us what we can do. And here's our product string merchandising evars. And we had said we wanted evar 10, and we wanted to set evar 11. And evar 10 was going to be that product info dot name. So this is the product name. And evar 11 is the product brand. So RAND. And yeah, so if I say keep changes here, I'm going to say save to library and build. And what's happening here is that we have kind of a bookend where we have a stacked events rule set here, where as this page loads with the event-driven data layer, we have page load started providing some page information, product viewed providing product information, user detected with user information, and then page load completed isn't actually providing any information. We're just using it as a trigger to send the beacon. And so we didn't have to send a beacon from that rule that we just wrote. We're layering on. So we're layering on product information. The global settings is actually layering on user information and page information and the plugin stuff. So we've built successfully. I'm going to clear out the edgelog, and we'll just reload this page, and we'll see. What we should see is that we now have a product viewed rule, and we have product information and a product string being built. So here we go. Product viewed, setting variables. We're setting the prod view event. And product viewed, set product string, and we're setting all of these things: category, EVAR 10, 11, EVAR event 11 and 12, product ID, and I guess that's it. And we've got a little table here that kind of gives you a nicer way to see this if you've got multiple products or multiple products in your product string. And if we take a look, let's look at what was actually built by the time we sent the beacon. Here is our category on our product. So here's product number 1, category is product ID, here's my events, and then here's my EVARs being sent. And let's take a look over here. I'm just going to go straight to the mapped values. And what we're going to see is, hey, here's my event string. So prod view event 11 and event 12. And here, PL, this is my product list or product string. And it is built just like we would want it to be built. So we've got our pipe signs separating the different EVARs and different events. We've got our semicolons. We've got everything where it should be. And that's a product. So we're going to look at one more thing here, and this is when a product is added to the cart. And what we want to do here is we want to set an SE add event. I've changed the product string a little bit. We want to set event 13 to capture the quantity added, and we want to send a custom link beacon instead of sending a page view beacon. So this one is already built for us. We're not going to do it all interactively, but we'll take a look at each of the steps. So I'm going to cancel that. So here we are, product added to cart. Our event is product added to cart. So when that's pushed to the data layer, we're going to run these actions. Set variables. So all we need to do for set variables in this case is to set the SC add event. And my network is hiccuping. Let's try that again. There we go. So the event SC add, and all your events that you're used to are here. So you got prod view, SC open, SC remove, SC view, SC checkout, and purchase. SC add is all we care to set here. We're going to set the product string, and this is exactly the way it was on the last example, except we added event 13. So no big change there. And here we're going to send the beacon. And this time we're sending it as an s.tl. We say we want it to be a link type of custom link. We could say download or exit, but custom link is what we want to do. And link name, we're setting to a static value, product added to cart. We could use the data element selector over here to choose one of our data elements for that value. And then the last thing is we just are clearing the variables. So nothing too exciting there. And like I said, this is already built, so we can just come over here and see how it works. I'll clear out the edge log, and we're just going to add to the cart. And here we go. So here's our rule, and here's the set variables action, setting sc add. Here's our set product string, setting all the values that we had talked about, including event 13. So quantity added was 1. And then our global variables are being applied. So that was in the extension configuration. And then finally, here's our whole beacon that's being sent. And if we come over to our mapped query params, we're going to see a few things that are different here. So web interaction link clicks value is 1. So that means that it's a custom link. If we look at our PEV2, so if you've done any debugging, that's our link name, product added to cart. And then here's our product list with event 13 in there, and our event list with event 13 included there as well. So that is about all that I have from a demo standpoint. We can go into questions at this point. Really, what's next is go out there and give it a try. If you are looking for this extension, it's out there in the extension catalog. So I'm just going to go to a property here that doesn't have it. So go to extensions, go to the catalog, and search for AA. And it's right there. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Stu. And you've had lots of comments, well, lots of questions coming in, but also several like kudos, love it, thumbs up. So, I mean, I think we all agree this looks amazing. Now, I know Haley has been very busy answering people's questions, but because we also want those answers recorded in the video session, I'm going to go over them again. So if you get repeated, that's why, for anyone who's still watching.
Yeah.
But because there is one here that came in late, which looks like it's an example, whereas other ones can probably be followed up on a chat. Can you show how to set the EC visitor ID with the ECD extension into an EVAR?
Sorry, hey, the question came from me. I meant to say without the ECID extension, because I think in the demo we saw that we don't need the ECID extension.
Right. So I would have to get back to you on how to do that from the client side. However, if you have the MID being passed into Adobe Analytics here on the server side, I know for sure that you could throw a processing rule in there. So you could say, grab this value as it's coming in and map that into whatever EVAR or prop you wanted to put it into.
Stu,
from the client side, I'm sure that it's there in the XDM, and we would just have to find out where it is and then map that.
Yeah, well, here's a thought that I had, Stu. Does this extension support the dynamic variables D equals something? Because if it does, which is actually processed on the Adobe side, you should just be able to do D equals MID and it should automatically copy that value over for you in whatever EVAR or prop you're trying to send it in.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And I'll actually just show you that. Let's go to, let's go to product viewed. Why not? So EVAR, we'll just say that it's EVAR 14. And you can do static values here. So this is going to get passed right through equal MID, key changes, save the library and build. And yeah, so we're going to see that get passed right through, and it will get processed on the collection server side. But yeah, it's absolutely going to work.
And it's
Awesome,
less
thanks.
work
We'll
than
try
writing all that JavaScript. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Sai.
No, I was saying that I got it. Like, I'll definitely try it on my end.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Okay, well, I'm going to scroll back up to the top and go in these questions in order. So the first one, do you know if all the features in AA via AEP Web SDK completely free, or there might be paid features in the future?
It is sort of a love letter to the community. It's free. Anyone can use it. We have no intention of putting a paywall on any of the functionality.
Excellent. The next one, which I think you already, this one came in before you got to the example, but does the extension support do plugins? I know you showed that, but if there's anything else you'd want to add to that.
Yeah. So the extension supports do plugins, absolutely, and we showed that. There are some plugins that rely upon internals of app measurement, and because app measurement doesn't exist, then those plugins are not going to not going to work. But yeah, I mean, for the majority of plugins out there and use of do plugins, you're going to be good to go.
So basically, like everything, test before you throw it into production, make sure it's actually compatible.
Yep.
Which was kind of the same sort of thing when we all went to launch. All right. Next question. Does the extension allow us to set the XDM objects to the field groups as well?
It does not, and it's purposefully built not to. And so I'm gonna give a little bit more explanation on that. So this extension is built to set Adobe Analytics values. If you want to set XDM values that are not Adobe Analytics, then you would use the AEP Web SDK. And there's a new, like this was announced at launch. So in the most recent version, 2.16, there is a support for a thing called rule stacking. And so what you can do is you can have a set variables action from this extension and an update variable action from this extension where you could do those XDM settings. The thing that you're going to see is within data elements. If we look at this here, this is the new data element type variable. And what this is kind of a stateful variable that holds an XDM structure or a JSON structure. And then you can assign values to that across a few rules, and then reference that variable when you go to do a send event. If you want to do that in concert with this extension, so you want to do both, here is the way that we support that. And so, sorry, I'll just do this. So on the send beacon action, we have this checkbox. So it's saying prepare the XDM. So we're going to set all the things on the XDM object, but we don't actually want to send the event. And So you do that, and then you merge the objects using the core JS variable. I'm sorry, the merged objects variable type from the core extension. So I kind of owe a write-up because I've been waiting for this functionality to come up. But yeah, so it's totally doable. And it's also totally doable to say, hey, I want to prepare but don't send. And then I'm going to use AEP Web SDK's send event and set things like target parameters, things like whether you want to render VEC experiences, whether you want to do Adobe Journey Optimizer stuff. So all that full configuration that you would see in the send event then becomes available to you. So within XDM data, you're just going to use the data that is provided either from this extension, looking at alloy.xdm state, or you're going to merge things together from multiple points. And then you have all these checkboxes and all these bells and whistles.
All right. Next, hearing that other debugging tools, e.g. Omnibug and all, will lose much of their functionality when a web SDK is implemented, this will largely make analysts' jobs more difficult without ease of access to all AA data being captured. The in-browser capabilities of these debuggers is superior to Adobe's because of their in-browser location.
Is that a question or?
I'm not sure. Well, it was. I guess it was sort of like. I guess what are your thoughts on some of those other tools? Now I know that a couple of people answered that Omnibug is recently doing support for the Adobe AEP Web SDK. I don't know if you've had any thoughts with some of these other extensions and how they're going to work in the future.
So that was one thing that we realized when we were building this is that, oh my goodness, well, all this stuff is in XDM and you don't have, what's my EVAR value? What's my prop value? And so we did our best to provide like this sort of console logging that can help you see, what's going on and what's going on at some fine granularity. Having said that, I think it's just going to be a matter of, are those tools going to catch up, and are they going to map back to props and EVARs, or are they going to, what are they going to do? Because at this early state in the game, there was nothing that was going to give you like this sort of information. And just adding one more thing that we didn't touch on, but this browser logging, this is triggered by the satellite set debug setting. So if we turn debugging off and we run this, then your logs are clean. If we turn debug on and run this, then this logging coming out of the extension is going to be there for you.
Right, and those debug logs they're super helpful when you're debugging. I use that all the time. Next, does the Web SDK server-side forwarding replace AEP data collection to event forwarding subscription?
I don't think so. So my understanding is that the AEP server-side forwarding is a facility that's out there to say, hey, we're sending this XDM out to the edge, and server-side forwarding allows you to grab onto that XDM and interrogate it, and then syndicate it out to things like Facebook Happy, or to other third parties, or out to your Azure database. So it's there to allow you to do non-Adobe things. You could, through the server-side API, like build your own extension that takes this data that's being sent up and then goes and uses some like data insertion API or whatever. But I think the answer to that is no, those are two different things, and I think they coexist.
Okay. We also have, where do you set the report suites?
Oh yeah, I glossed over that, but so in order to make this work, you need to have a schema. So you should have a schema. I'm going to back up on the need to, but here's the schema that we have on Experience Platform, and it has one, the class is XDM Experience Event, which is really just time series data. And then here's one field group that I added, which is the Adobe Analytics Experience Event template. And it provides all of the spots for all the Adobe stuff, or Adobe Analytics stuff. So your analytics custom dimensions and events and decisioning implementations, all that stuff is in there. I believe web, I believe commerce gets put in there. All of this stuff gets put in there, but the stuff that you're going to be used to in Adobe Analytics all gets like augmented onto the schema. You also need a thing called a data stream, and the data stream is keyed off of this ID. You're going to see this as configuration ID if you look at the network call that's being sent up to the edge. But it's basically saying, hey, when the data comes up to the edge, what do I do with it? And in this case, I have this data stream that has Adobe Analytics as a service. So it's one of those things that it's going to do with the data. And if I edit that, then here is my one report suite that I configured for that data stream. And you can configure multiple report suites if you want.
All right. Does the mapping between the XDM schema underscore custom dimension EVAR event prop and the used EVAR happen by naming convention, i.e. regardless of the selected schema?
Can you say that again?
Alejandro, are you still here?
You can just repeat it.
Okay. Does the mapping between the XDM schema underscore custom dimension EVAR, and then in brackets event, comma, prop, and the used EVAR happen by naming convention, i.e. regardless of the selected schema?
There's two different answers to that, depending on where we're talking about the mapping. So there's one mapping, which is, how do we get from the data that was sent in XDM? So how do we get from this data, experience, analytics, custom dimensions, EVARs, EVAR 14, 15, or 5, 8, and 9. So how does that get mapped to this and this? And that mapping is done, it's all set in place, and it is the Adobe Analytics automatic mappings. And so if you want to look at how to get from, if you want to set EVAR 14, how do you get to XDM Experience Analytics Custom Dimensions EVARs, EVAR 14, that's where you would need to reference this document. And you would have to say, I want to set an EVAR, and it's going to be following this convention. So that's kind of set in stone. From the extension side, how did we get from, in your rule where you're setting a dimension, or in the custom settings of the extension, how do we get from here to the XDM? That's done automatically within the extension, and that's also using this knowledge. So the extension is taking EVAR5 and putting it into EVAR5 in this structure. And then Adobe's edge processing is taking this structure and then mapping it back into EVAR5 before it sends it to the Adobe Analytics collection servers. So we're kind of just like meeting in the middle on that mapping.
All right. I think we've only gotten through about half of the questions that came in, but we're kind of at time. So what I'm going to do is I'll work with Stu and Haley with the remaining questions. We'll go through, we'll write up basically typed answers to each of those, maybe with resources, and we will post it probably to the Experience link. We'll create a discussion there, and I'll make sure that that link gets posted along with the video. As well as if we can, we'll send it out in the email when everything goes live. And if it's not there, I apologize. We have very little control over those email templates, but we'll make sure that this is available to everybody as to the best of our ability.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank both Stu and Haley for not only bringing this to us to help present, but for presenting it. This was a great session. I think we're all kind of pumped to give it a try. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thanks for having us.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.